Hey everyone, good afternoon from Los Angeles, and hello everyone out there joining us. I'm Seth Schachner. Welcome to the DEW Lunch Series. We got a great talk on tap today. Normally, DEW's founder Ned Sherman is with us and does a little bit of an intro, but he's tied up today, so I'm going to take the liberty of kicking this off with just a brief introduction. We do these chats most days, pretty much every day, and this is, believe it or not, the 102nd version of it. So, and it will continue Monday with the business of streaming. So stay tuned for that at the same time. And what we typically do is it's a 50-minute conversation. We end it on the dot typically, or sometimes give you a little time back. And we do briefest of intros, and Molly and I are going to have a chat, just conversational, for about a half an hour, and we usually open it up for Q&A going forward on that after that. And so I encourage everyone, just feel free to intro yourself or pop comments in the chat box down at the bottom. And for Q&A, use the Q&A button down at the bottom right as well. And we'll get to all your questions. We'll try and do it in a personal way, because I assume we've got both Molly and I have a lot of friends online, so let us know that you guys are here. Okay, so we have a really cool call today. Molly Neuman is president of Songtrust. She's got an awesome background in digital music and entertainment, independent music. So we're definitely going to go through that. But some of this stuff we're going to touch on today is perhaps specialized. There's some of you from the Thursday Right sessions that I think will probably know it and overlap, but there may be some of you out there who don't. So I just thought, before we kick into this, feel free to use the chat button there. How many of you are familiar with areas like performance royalties and mechanical royalties? Can you give us a little bit of sense of that? Because it might help me steer the conversation shallower or deeper, depending upon your knowledge. So let us know on that. But Molly, welcome. It's cool to be with you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm really happy to be here and happy to see some names in the chat. I'm just glancing quickly to say hi to everybody, and I'm glad that some people are not totally unfamiliar with publishing rights and the complexities that we're trying to navigate with Songtrust and on behalf of our clients around the world. But yeah, I'm really happy to be here. Good. I'm in Brooklyn, and I locked the door so we wouldn't have a BBC moment, but I heard my daughter.
Oh, right.
So
well,
she's okay. She just got off school.
No problem. I'm in LA and near the Santa Monica airport here, and we got dogs, so we may have some third parties weigh in at some point, so forgive us for that.
We're all in it together.
There you go. And from the looks of Jeff Mayfield, Nathan Bryden, Joanna Dowdy, we've got quite a few people, so it looks like we've got some experts in the group, so we maybe can don't have to do the most basic dives down. So let's start. So one little brief comment. You and I spoke earlier this week. We keep picking like really slow news days when there's nothing going on out in the world to distract us from these discussions to talk. But we'll find.
It's intense.
Yeah,
but we're doing our best.
Yeah. Cool. So let's start just with, maybe the obvious question. We're in the middle of, maybe one of the most historical disruptions in U.S. history in 100 years, a giant pandemic. I think it's safe to say it's a time when many people are working from home, or, some are confined to home or going out wearing masks. And, broadly speaking, consumption, whether it's audio or video, has been up. Has your business seen these effects? Has it been disrupted? I mean, how has the pandemic affected Songtrust's business?
We've been okay. And, a few of the reasons that I attribute to that are, number one, we were operating in our sort of, how we were trying to speak to potential new customers and how we were trying to get out in front of the music market of independent writers and producers and people that work with them. We were doing a lot of virtual work already for the past couple of years. We did regular webinars and lots of phone calls and demos and video content and things like that. So we weren't totally unprepared when we had to ramp it up. And so I think that was a good opportunity for us. And then, I joke about this, and I think I mentioned to you when we spoke earlier, working with Songtrust is kind of like doing your taxes. It's a little bit of something you put off. If you think about music publishing and you think about global royalty collection and you consider that there might be something out there for you to collect, but it's daunting and challenging to think about what the path to do so would
Sure.
be, outside of just working with your local PRO or CMO. That's kind of what we offer. And if you've ever had heard of, like, and I think Songtrust does this, maybe in those early months, we were available to sort of like, sure, let me join a webinar, let me talk to one of your reps, let me find out more. And we were fortunate that people did actually, sort of take the time to, become a client, put their works in, and now we can, start what we do, which is register those works globally and hopefully collect what our clients are owed and pay them. So it's not to say that it's easy. Our business is, skewed more digital for our core client base, whereas traditional publishing certainly is significantly impacted by what's happening with, live music and public performance and bars and restaurants and all of those things. So in many ways, our business it's not going to be easy, and we don't know what the future holds entirely, but we've been okay.
Cool. And just a reminder, everyone out there, when you drop comments in the chat, you gotta address them to panelists and attendees so everyone can see, and we're starting to get lots of good ones coming in. But just, Melly, but just like on the, totally top level, I don't know, is music consumption up in such a radically bigger way because of the pandemic, or is it just kind of a steady state type thing? Or
well, those are the things that I remember that like, what was it, the first week of everybody sort of staying at home. By the end of March, we were looking at consumption behaviors and trying to forecast trends against those. That was a little bit early to see what the long-term impact was going to be. And obviously, I think now we have much more information that indicates, we're listening to more music, we're consuming more video content. There's all sorts of different ways that people are experiencing things. And that won't likely, disappear when things might be a little bit more, the future might be a little bit back to what we were familiar with. But so I think what we, and also in our business, there's a long timeline from the actual sort of like work that we do in the first days to when we receive the royalties. So there are also things that we will have to we just keep close eye on it.
Yeah, for sure. So let's just let's dig again at a top level, just in terms of Songtrust, what it is, what's your focus. We talked about it, but which are the rights areas that you focus on for your artists and your clients?
Yeah. So we're focused on, obviously, publishing royalties earned globally, public performance royalties, and mechanicals. We also work with all of the companies, like all of the digital companies, including YouTube and TikTok and Facebook and all of the other sort of non-streaming and non-mechanical exactly scenarios that you might have. We do that on a global basis, and our model and what we're endeavoring to do is have sort of the least amount of barriers between where the royalties are earned and where the clients are. So we try to remove as many layers as possible, have direct affiliations with societies so that we can register and validate and make sure that the registrations are proper and for the works that have activity in that market, collect them and distribute them as accurately and precisely as possible. And it's fractional. The area that we've been seeing a lot of opportunity in the last couple of years is obviously independent writers, but now independent producers and beat makers and other people that share in you know, what a song is in these times, and helping them access their, you know, their global royalties has been, you know, an exciting place to be.
No, it's a very important function. So is it, I mean, master recordings is a different kind of ballpark and area that you're not focused on, or do you touch on that?
Right. Yeah. Not in our specific business at Songtrust. We are part of the downtown music family, which includes a number of companies that do operate in recording rights and distribution, particularly CD Baby, Dashco, and Fuga. So we definitely feel like, you know, our zone of, you know, responsibility is complicated enough. We don't have to, you know, make it any add to it, and let, you know, our business focus on what we do. And you know, we do collaborate with those companies, certainly. And, you know, a lot of our growth over the last almost 10 years has been through our partnership with CD Baby. Before we were part of the same family of companies, you know, we've been the back end technology for their CD Baby publishing product. And we have a partnership with Dashco where, you know, they have their own publishing company and they use our systems.
Got it. And is it, sorry for all the basic questions, but I think the framing helps it because it's special.
It's good for me to like keep on top of it, because since my job changed and I have to look, you know, at our company and all our departments, sometimes I don't actually pitch Songtrust as much as I used to.
So what about video? I mean, is it mostly about audio, or even, you know, new configurations or platforms? I mean, are you collecting performance and mechanicals for tons of different stuff outside of the audio universe? Or
I mean, wherever there is a publishing royalty to be collected, so if it's in the form of a YouTube video, you know, that is a space that we operate as well, for sure.
Social video, you mentioned TikTok, Triller. I wrote for an app called Smule, for example. All these things are sort of presumably part of the picture, I imagine.
Yeah, most of them. If we don't have a deal in place already, then, you know, we're having conversations. You know, that is another, you know, we do endeavor to have as many direct partnerships as a traditional publishing company might hope to. Although we have a much larger scale of works and writers that we represent. So, you know, I think there are times, certainly historically, where people are like, yeah, we're good, you know, use the, you know, statutory license and let's, you know, we're good. But we have improved some of our licensing schemes, and that just helps us, you know, be better partners to those companies and vice versa.
Yeah. Now, not that there's any average artist or standard artist, but it's just what are the average or the typical artist model that comes through the door to work with Songtrust? They have their own publisher, for example, that handles certain things, and they look to you for elements, or what is there a typical case study?
I mean, there's a spectrum, but one sort of standard profile might be an up and coming artist or songwriter who has never even affiliated with a PRO, who, you know, and which we have the capacity to help them do that with a few different PROs, ASCAP, BMI, SOCAN, and IMRO in Ireland. You can, if you've never, you know, affiliated with a society before, those are the ones that we have direct partnerships with right now. And so then they sort of have their own publishing company that we administer. We don't, you know, you don't necessarily have to sort of start your own named company, but you'll still get access to those royalties using our systems.
I see. Got it.
But the other ones are, you know, people who have been established, who want to own, you know, all of their work. You know, we have a number of sort of, you know, well-known independent songwriters and performers who, you know, want to keep 100% of their creative work. They have maybe a label that can help them with the sync licensing for the master side, and if they work with us, they can keep 100% of the publishing share, because we don't participate in that. And that's, you know, we're happy to concentrate on the complicated parts, try to solve them and make them as you know, constantly improve them. I don't think we'll ever feel like we're done with that work, because a new complexity will reveal itself. But we don't participate on those sort of more creative pieces in our standard terms. There are sometimes where people are like, can you help us, manage this license, and we will do that for a small extra fee.
Interesting. It makes a lot of sense to have that clarity in the market with so many
Yeah.
artists. I totally understood. But and it just again, like if an artist has, I don't know, is a Sony ATV artist or an EMI artist, do they walk out into the landscape with what you do already covered, or do they have the option to say patch what you do into some of their existings if they're perhaps
if they're already with
publisher?
another publishing company, that wouldn't be necessary. But if they, for example, were with a different publisher and their deal was over, and they felt like it was, they wanted to sort of like take it in house, and that was for whatever reason, we would be a good option after that. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And Debbie Neuman, my old friend from Sony, you may know from
Hi, Debbie. Yes,
the New
of course.
York digital music
One of the
community,
Newmans. We have a cool crew of Newmans in the music business of women.
She's got a W from Music Strat.
Yeah, that's okay.
She asked a question that I was going to ask, but she got before. But I mean, and we can go into the the downtown music structure. I want to get in a little bit, but let's do it a little bit as we get into it. But you've got, I mean, there are some awesome publishing assets, if I recall. Like, I want to say I saw some Miles Davis and some John Lennon. And
for downtown music publishing, yes.
Yeah, maybe in a different division. Is any of that kind of an overlapping thing? Is there a relationship, or is it just a separate? Yeah.
Our team does 100% of the administration for downtown music publishing. So they no longer have a back office or a separate copyright, royalties, or any sort of administrative services. They're purely focused on A&R. So I see her question mentioned A&R. That's entirely separate. And they have a different strategy, and also creative teams, and work and collaboration. And we have a very strong, in the downtown music publishing company, presence in Nashville, and the Warren Treaty is one of our clients, and John Prine's catalog is under our representation. But so Songtrust does all of the less glamorous parts, I suppose.
Yeah. No, I think it's a very clear proposition. Makes a lot of sense. It's a great question,
I find it sort of, whereas, my background was in, being a musician and working on at labels and doing artist management for a long time. And at this point in my career, 25 plus years in, I'm kind of into how this is still a big problem to solve, and trying to use as many sort of efficiencies around technology and systems that we can build, but also it's never not going to be a human business, just because of the way it's so fractional for the actual copyright that, and the shares that someone might represent, and then it's so fractional around the world.
Yeah. So do you touch, I mean, the clearance is obviously presumably a core part of what your process is, or is that something that's handled outside?
You mean like rights clearances for synchronization opportunities and things like that?
Yeah.
That is actually that's one of the things we don't do.
I see.
There's a sync team, a creative team at Downtown Music Publishing that is always working with the catalog and the repertoire. But what we do is, because we don't do that at Songtrust, our clients have the maximum flexibility to manage that on their own. And like I said, sometimes we might help if they ask.
I know from my own experience with some of the social apps I work with, particularly with things, reggaeton, Latin rap, whatever it might be. I mean, the number of songwriters or participants is, it's tremendously handcrafted business to just clear those things. So
we do help on clearing mechanical uses for labels and things like that. I mean, we do have that kind of administration we do offer.
Yeah. So let's I want to also talk about downtown and also your background as we get into this, because you got an awesome background. There's definitely some points that I want to touch on, but just top level with the landscape, whether it's in the US or just internationally, with PROs, societies, even the copyright board. I mean, what's your view? Do you see do you see it as a landscape that's going to hold its same structure? Is it something that's going to get blown up and subject to a lot of change?
I think there's no way, and you even see some of the sort of like governing bodies like CISAC, bringing sort of new precision to some of the existing systems. I think they made a big announcement on ISWCs this week or last week. I think that everyone knows that improvements on data management and reducing how much redundant work around the world takes place has to happen. And I think we very much want to be a part of that, success story, but it's not going to happen overnight. And a lot of it is like you think about it, some of it is actual bandwidth. Like what can, as there's so much activity happening in streaming, so many new works all the time, and in different countries with different capacities, some of those they cannot physically manage it. And so we are trying to, in that front as well, be good partners, because we do have a lot of volume and a spectrum of activity across that catalog that we represent. So we want to make sure that, the work that we do is in the best interest of everybody that we, collaborate with, whether it's societies or different sort of agencies that represent, how works are registered and collected upon.
Yeah, I mean, internationally is the picture. I do quite a bit of work in Latin America, and it doesn't feel sometimes to me, I mean, whether it's just a government mandate, like in Argentina, where you got to work with a SADAIC or Amplifon in Mexico, it doesn't feel as mutable perhaps as the U.S. market or even other mature markets, basically.
That's right.
I mean, if maybe less of a chance that it'll change down there.
Yeah, I think it's, we were having a conversation with a partner in Argentina today, as a matter of fact, and, talking about we would never dare, me in New York and, our global head of partner relations based in London, to think that we could from afar know what a local market's needs are, requirements, or be able to navigate all of those. I mean, you really can't just, and, I'm sure in your business that's, that better than many, that, there are so many local specifications that you need to consider. But there are a lot of opportunities, and you want to, I think that's one of the things that we're excited about, as you mentioned, being part of downtown with, companies that have different global footprints, like CD Baby has offices in Colombia and Chile and Brazil, and we, hope to collaborate whenever that makes sense, to look at new opportunities.
Totally. And it's just like, is streaming sort of the de facto biggest piece of your pie everywhere around the globe, or is physical still a business in some markets, right? Japan, France,
It is for our company, specifically for Songtrust, and what most of our activity is impacted by streaming. I always think about it, when I started writing songs when I was in my early 20s and became an ASCAP member in, whatever couple of years after that. And then, that was when everything was physical, and our label just wrapped our mechanicals into our royalties, and it really wasn't a big deal. If we got some kind of creative placement, we were easily able to approve it and take our share, et cetera. But this is a whole different ballgame. And when I joined Songtrust 3 years ago, I was like, okay, I guess I have to become a client. I didn't walk the walk, and we paid out our royalties on Wednesday, and I got I got my publisher share, and it was fine. It's not my main area of focus right now.
Yeah, no, but you have an awesome background, and I for whatever reason we didn't exactly overlap in different spots. I know we have tons of people in common, but I was, just looking through things you've done, eMusic, Rhapsody, A2IM. I mean, it's a lot of interesting experiences. I mean, do you feel like, are you drawing on it in kind of this role, or is it a completely different landscape that you're in? Or
I mean,
just a little bit of your cards are there.
One upside is I know a lot of people. I've been around in lots of different places. But like you said, there's still new people to meet. And so that's cool. And certainly, I think the role that I had right before I joined Songtrust, I was at Kickstarter for a couple of years, and that was certainly a bit of a different area for me to go into a more tech-focused company, but to work in music there. And I did learn a tremendous amount from sort of taking a break from music, even though Rhapsody and eMusic were, not necessarily like creative music companies, but that was their focus. and to see how different categories of industry work. So obviously at Kickstarter, design and technology are and games was always the thing, and it still is very successful there. As it wasn't video games or online games, it was board games, card games, real life things and I was like, and the community connections that those subcategories can have and how meaningful those can be. That was always really that was very profound for me, and I think taking that into the work that I'm doing and what I've learned and tried to apply as we've grown Songtrust these last couple of years has been really awesome.
Yeah, no, I think it's an excellent point on gaming. We had Roblox on recently, actually last week, and it's something that seems to have exploded during the pandemic. I don't know, like 140 million users, and
it's
younger
wild.
skewing kids.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much it's been even on the radar of people, but this idea of just gaming in general and not licensing to a game, but creating games and sharing it.
Yeah.
Selling merch. It's an awesome set of
millions of dollars. There were games that would launch and have raised over $1 million within 24 hours, sometimes in hours. Yeah. And they were board games, right. And so you would just and it was where innovation and ingenuity was an actual you could see it in a tangible form. And that was really inspiring to me. I think one of the things that we hope to, apply along those lines at what we're doing at Songtrust is, and I think people speak about community a lot, and what we do is like, publishing, and rights management. What is that community? But it's also, a part of it is like a business autonomy. A lot of creative people, I think historically have sort of like, oh, I don't want to deal with that. I want an A&R person. I want a label, blah, blah, blah. I want the funding. And now there's so much discussion around, owning your work, what it means to, to manage those assets, with the right sort of framework to do it. And I think there are areas of sort of like business community that might, that we could help develop more as well.
Yeah, for sure. No, I mean, just with the proliferation of platforms, I mean, certainly even with social music. And it's interesting, I don't want to spend too much time on it, but, I had a lot of friends over there, David Packman, Joel Schumpeter. I remember the days of eMusic, and I'm going to date myself a little bit being at Jive Records, doing digital before it was a real business. I always joke that, I picked the wrong decade to work at a major label, but whatever. But, it's sort of interesting. Do you see any parallels between the eMusic and what it was trying to do and what you're seeing today, just in terms of Songtrust?
Sure. I mean, I think I joined eMusic in 2006. So, with David, and, I think having that, and they had already had since the jump, pretty much a sort of editorial strategy, a curated, focus of the catalog, and mostly working with independent record companies, how to elevate interesting work so that people could discover it, and at that reasonable price and at that reasonable rate. And what's interesting, one of our colleagues who ran the editorial, that's where I met Yancey Strickler, who was the co-founder of Kickstarter, and how I ended up there. But J. Edward Keyes, Joe Keyes became the sort of managing editor of eMusic, and now is doing that job at Bandcamp, which I think most of us would agree is, doing, and it's an incredible option in this space right now. Today's Bandcamp Friday, and they have demonstrated a real new way of thinking about running companies, and are building incredible loyalty around that from the people that they their partners, the labels and artists and recording artists, and their customers. And I think it's and part of what Joe is doing, elevating this incredible body of work that they have, is and all the different genres and all the different geographies, is really I'm a big fan.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And by the way, everyone out there, we've got almost 50 of you. Please pop some questions at us. Pretty soon we're going to open up the Q&A. We've only got one anonymous question, and Debbie Newman's asked a couple. So put them in the Q&A, and I promise you we will get to them. So, one of the ideas I got from talking to you, as well as Brad Yuan, who's a good friend of mine over there in downtown, and I think it plays into these themes of independent artists and growth, but it's the idea of creating a more equitable industry, whether that's better artist compensation, whatever it might be. But you also mentioned diversity. There's things that you're doing beyond just the mechanics of what you're describing that are quite remarkable. Maybe you could speak to that a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've all, it's been sort of one of the values that I've tried to apply to my career from, since I was in college, and, you had the chance to think about social justice and activism through music. That was like, we were talking about having grown up in DC, and, that was having visibility into activism through, the back in those days, the Rock Against Reagan and, anti-apartheid movements and all of the sort of like, things that, that was part of what informed me as a, when I was, getting started. And so I've always, and obviously there aren't that many women in executive roles around the industry. There's more, which is awesome. But there can always be probably more, and there can always be lots of different dimensions of representation in our industry. And, I think at the beginning of the summer, obviously with George Floyd's death and the activism that has emerged from that in our industry, and sort of the conversation that has come front and center around more visibility and balance and representation. We think about it not just with our staff, but also with our clients, and we do serve a pretty diverse segment of clients, and we want to do that properly. We want to do that, kind of in the same way, like you can't just go into a country and think that you understand the local world. Like
Sure.
we need to look like each other, and so that maybe there's a more eloquent way of saying that, but that's kind of how I feel, that we just need to know where we are, and it's probably not at the ratios that we want to see, and then try to improve it. And so that's something that's just, I think, motivating a lot of us at our company.
Well, I mean, it also just seems, just from a top level, we had one of your colleagues on, John Baer from CD Baby and AVL Digital, and they've all participated with Ned and Tinzar's organization in the past. But and it feels like just whatever the aggregation of assets and strengths around downtown. It's actually pretty awesome. I mean, one of the thoughts I had was this is going to become a mini major. I don't know if that's the top level strategy, but it looks at the very minimum very impressive, basically.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it does tie together with, maybe don't think about it like exactly in that way, but that, things have shifted. There's more access for people to be in their homes and make incredible music. And there's more access to distribute it through lots of different companies now. Sure. And there's more access to consume it through all of these affordable options in streaming or free options. And you see that with, like, what is it? Indonesia has the biggest consumption of YouTube, or there's some stat that you're like,
I've for sure seen it in Indonesia and Latin America as well. The numbers are spectacular.
Yeah, and I mean, people love music and media, and they love the opportunity to learn more, and these barriers have really removed themselves. And I think about when I got my start, and sort of like everything just seemed like it's impossible. There's no information. How do you make a record? How do you, and we were coming from DIY, where it's really not that difficult to imagine. And now I think, trying to put these companies together in that way, what we're doing is whether it's like thinking of it like a mini major, or just thinking about, this is what the market requires now. People want to have fair deals, and and they are still investment that's needed. And I don't think any of us think that there are situations where a label isn't an option or a traditional publishing deal isn't an option. But I think with strengthening the sort of frameworks that we can work within for every option and as many flexibilities is very much what we're trying to do.
Yeah. So, I mean, a top level question. I mean, I'm interested just in all the international markets you're working with, but I mean, and I don't know if it's fair, but is artist compensation better these days on like a per artist by artist basis, given that streaming and ad supported streaming is the prevalent model, or is it a wash? Is it hard to say?
I mean, I think you
certainly,
I think it certainly depends on who you ask, right? And what their portfolio looks like and how they monetize. And, there are certainly many people who don't think so. And particularly, where the conversation for the last, 5-7 years was about live music sort of like making up the difference between physical and streaming, and that's disappeared. I don't think that you would probably find too many people that are thinking that we're in the healthiest place overall, but there are lots of ways that has improved. And for a lot of savvy artists, and I think of like my old friends Bikini Kill, who have taken over, they took their catalog into their own management and distribute it through a very fair deal, and get paid monthly, and share that equitably amongst their partners. And I mean, there are models. It does take active work, and I kind of that kind of goes back to what we do at Songtrust. Like, it's not like you become a client and everything's handled. You still have to register. You have to, put the works in, or at least make sure that whatever data you've given us is as precise and accurate as possible, so that we can go then do the work on your behalf.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And I'm going to start just hitting some of the questions. It may go a little bit randomly out of the conversation we've been having, but someone who's anonymous has asked, for an artist, writer coming in the door, is there a minimum basically that you typically look for so that Songtrust will work with you?
Right. So our deal is if you come in, like you go to songtrust.com, you like start now, register to become a client. It is $100, and then of what you put into our system for us to collect on your behalf, we take 15%, and that's a 1-year deal. So the barrier is whether you think it's worth $100, and we will work with you to sort of make sure that it is probably the case, and we're not really there to help you, to sell you on a sort of like a false hope of earnings. If we have a number of questions that we can help you go through to see if it's the right thing to do. Some people, who might not have their compositions in distribution or being represented by other people or themselves in, like great volume, they might see it as a good deal anyway, because it is like keeping your house in order for future activity, and sort of like having this global publishing company at your disposal. So there are a couple of different ways to think about it.
Got it. And is there, I mean, like just in terms of top level genres, are you spread evenly from reggaeton to rock to classical, or is there a specific area that you have more representation?
Yeah, genre analysis is a little bit tricky for us to have a lot of precision around, but we have been growing a lot with hip hop artists, particularly, and producers and beat makers, and that's been a big area of opportunity for us. And then but we also work with a lot of singer-songwriters and rock musicians, and it might be amusing to some very like new age sounds that are quite popular and lucrative for songwriters that they represent. Some music with rain sounds and things like that is an actual big area of streaming. And we have a couple of clients that do very well with that.
Yeah, no, I know from my Latin experience, just with genres like certain Asia or regional Mexican or whatever are enormously
Oh yeah.
important. They often don't, even faith-oriented music as well. Is the base of writers and publishers, I mean, is it mostly American based, or do you have a lot of
It's
ex-US?
heavily North America right now, but we announced a new partnership this week with a firm in Ghana, and we've been growing our companies and sort of the businesses that we work with in Africa pretty steadily over this year. Different attorneys who work with local writers who know that there's activity, especially one of the sort of areas that is very good for us is if we know that you have activity outside of your local territory, that's a great place for us to help,
Yeah.
because we can work with our network and make sure that you're collecting what you're owed. And we also, because downtown, one of the new companies that we have in our family is Sheer Publishing out of South Africa. So they're also a big part of us, developing that strategy and, seeing what the opportunities are. And there's, again, like different things that you have to consider around access to mobile or access to desktop and all of the things that, you have to kind of meet the needs of the potential clients.
That makes a lot of sense. Jeff Mayfield out there, very familiar name, has asked an excellent question. Just asking, Jeff's asking like of the new entities that come to you to Songtrust. I mean, are there any perhaps most common, misconceptions, kind of information gaps that you're seeing when
or like individual writers, new and sort of early career people? Certainly, it's like, why do I need Songtrust if I have a PRO, or do you do the same thing as Sound Exchange? Sort of like understanding how the rights management works and the different copyrights and the recording rights and the publishing rights and songwriter composition rights. That is a lot of the work that we do on trying to help kind of people understand it and make sure that we are presenting it as accurately as possible. So when we have new people, they're not exactly A&R people because they're not out there like certainly no one is like going to shows and doing things in the same way, but talking to creative people about what we offer, kind of making sure that we're telling the accurate story for them to understand. That's a big part of what we do.
Yeah, no, excellent. I mean, a couple of other questions have come in. Manuela Gran and Debbie's at Neuman's also asked one. They both go to this idea of long-term effects and when and where are things going back, to normal? I mean, do you see pockets?
Emmanuel is asking me.
And Debbie is as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I hesitate to have that kind of a forecast for the whens, because we hoped not to be here in October, with this situation. But I am very optimistic about, when we do the things that we see in New York City, for example, if we can hold on and start doing things, obviously many of us have had to modify our preferences and do things that are not as comfortable as we'd like. But if there are new ways that we can think about having some of those experiences, and, I talk regularly with some friends in who are agents in live music. And, it's like, it's terrifying to see what we're having to navigate. But,
no, I
going to be hopeful.
I think we've all read, I mean, Mark Geiger's made some public comments on it, and even the nuances of the live business, I think, have become things that normally no one would ever talk about, like insurance, have come into the headlines that are pretty important insights. But I've also seen just generally.
We're not talking about Brexit anymore. We're not talking about carnets and all of that stuff. That was like a year ago.
Yeah.
Oh,
right.
Like in, when I was touring and you were paid in local currency in Europe, and what that meant, and you had to get, a carnet for your gear in every country. That was. I wish we were talking about that kind of fun stuff, but we're not.
Well, it's interesting because I definitely see, a bunch of us have worked with different live streaming platforms, that seems to be some sort of perhaps short-term, if commoditized solution to what, the concert disruption. But I've definitely seen quite a few disparate attitudes on when it will come back. I mean, perhaps some of my colleagues in European markets and Latin markets seem to have more aggressive points of view on it. I've seen some really interesting things, and believe it or not, Colombia, they've got these like live music events that are distance, that, you know, you drive your car in and there's a platform, you get out, you got a cooler there.
I've seen some pictures of
there's
those.
a portable bathroom, whatever. And, you know, I mean, a little bit bizarre, and those are probably at the fringes. But
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. You know, I think different parts of the world are looking at it different ways, basically.
Well, it's a bad joke, but you know, I'm very familiar with playing for quite socially distanced audiences in my performing career. There was a lot of like to ourselves or the promoter shows, you know, and independent music, you know, which has never been, you know, sort of underground music, has never been motivated necessarily by the same sort of, you know, like commercial success. You know, I imagine that there will be, you know, I hope it's safe. I mean, that's all I care about, is that, you know, what we do is safe, and you know, that there will be creativity applied to these solutions.
Yeah, I think so. We only have a few more minutes, so I'm going to just read a couple of the really good ones that have come out. Someone anonymous has asked just about a little bit of a top level view on the near term future in terms of getting the biggest streamers to improve their payouts per the Music, you know, Modernization Act. Is there anything that Songtrust is doing there to help, or interacting in any way?
The biggest streamers, like the biggest streaming companies, and
Sure, Spotify
sort of, or
yeah.
I mean, there's obviously a well-known situation with, you know, an appeal to the CRB rates that were set in 2018, and there's a lot of, you know, uncertainty around where that will shake out, and I think we start negotiating the 2022 rates in February or something. So, you know, there's a lot that's unknown, but I think kind of like what I was saying earlier, I mean, we are in a community together, and we must compartmentalize some of these issues in order to, you know, to work, and, you know, assume that they'll get resolved at some point, to hopeful satisfaction. I mean, the publishing industry is, you know, we operate differently and at different requirements than the recorded side of the industry, and you know, I hope to see some improvements on that eventually, but you know, there's a lot of ways to go on that front.
Makes a lot of sense. Well, one last question here before we wrap it up, but there's been a few questions just about new platforms. Blockchain came up as one. We're getting quite a few questions on board games, which you mentioned, but maybe you could just speak to a little bit. I don't know
totally off topic.
Someone's particularly hot about board games, but maybe just a little thought if you're seeing that collecting.
We all need a break.
Yeah.
Sorry, what was it about blockchain and new platforms? That was the question.
Yeah, I mean, have you looked at it? You know, is it a solution for data management, or perhaps financial transactions?
Sure. I mean, I think that like one of our partner, you know, family companies, Fuga, works actively with the company Verify, you know, and you know, we're very interested in what they're working on, and you know, hopeful that there can be, like I was saying earlier, we know we have to reduce this sort of duplicative effort that a lot of us take on around the world. So if that's going to be a solution, I think we're definitely, you know, open to it and hope to be part of that solution.
Cool. All right. Well, Molly, this was awesome. Thanks a lot. I think we can
Seth.
get another hour. Maybe we'll do it again.
Thanks, friends, that were here.
Thank you, everyone, all 50 or 47 of you out there. This continues on Monday. There's a chat on why online has become the main source for TV with John Giegengack of Hub Entertainment, and there's a link to sign up in the chat. Thank you, everyone. Have a good weekend. Stay healthy. Stay safe. Cheers,
Thanks,
guys.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.